Three, two, one. Hello and welcome to the show. Woohoo! I'm Michelle Vandepass with my guest today, Mr. David Buck from Coachville, master teacher, master coach, guru in the industry. So happy here. You'll know me from Purpose and Profit and also Grace Point Matrix. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited because we're going to talk about how we can brand those of us that are over 40 and
those of us of a certain age
and compete with the youngins. Oh geez, I can't believe I used that word. Compete with the millennials who really get personal branding, right? They just grew up with it. So welcome to the show, and let's start by
my pleasure.
What is personal branding?
Okay, well, that's a good question. What it really means is how you are known in the world, how the world knows you, how the people of the world know you, and to be recognized, to be seen, to be visible, all of these things that you need to be successful in whatever you're trying to do. So, whether you want to build a business or get a leadership position within an organization, or even find the love of your life, all of these things require that you be seen and preferably known for who you really are, so that the connections you make are authentic. And so that's what personal branding sort of encompasses, all of these things. It's like being seen and known for who you really are. That's the core of personal branding.
So how much of it is the external, like our headshot and our colors and our logo, and how much of it's internal? Because you use that word authentic.
Yes.
And that makes me think it's an internal piece.
Well, okay. I've made up some funny slides.
Oh, great.
So first I want to put this little slide up here, which is this thing about the Visibility Studio, which is something I'm creating for all folks, but with a special place in my heart for those over 40. And the idea is to unleash the raw power of the real you.
Okay.
So that's what it's really about. So, things like your headshot and how you look in photos, those are actually, they're a little bit important, but that's not the most important thing by any stretch. The most important thing in being visible is being known for who you really are. The real you, the you that you were born to be, is one way that I like to say it. And so that's the most important thing. So the thing, I have another little slide here. This is something my coach always said to me. Okay. So my coach, Thomas Leonard, is the original life coach of the world. He always used to say this to me, and it's a really profound thing.
Ooh.
He said, "The universe never lies," which is a provocative statement, okay? And what he meant by that is, if you're wanting to go out in the world to build a business or get promoted in your career or find the love of your life, and it's not happening, or it's really hard, or it's a big struggle, that's the universe telling you something is off. So rather than continuing to struggle, it's like, well, I got to get out there, and all right, I'm getting out there, but it's not happening. That's the universe telling you, okay, stop, time out. I'm a coach, so it's like, time out. Something is off. So that's the first place is to slow down and say, okay, if I'm trying to get out there and it's a struggle and people are not really connecting and I'm not really making progress in the dreams of my life, then something is off, and it's time to call a timeout and look in a new direction. And the direction you need to look is within. Now, this is something that other people also say. And so what we're going to talk about is some new ideas about how to do that look within, some breakthrough possibilities about that look. And here's a thing that I talk about all the time, which is, if you do any kind of a program, let's say you want to build a business and you do a business building program, or you want to become a leader and you do some leadership program, what's going to happen? The first thing that's going to happen is whoever's leading the program is going to start asking you questions Like, well, who are you? And what is your vision? And what is your purpose? And what do you really do for your clients? And who is your ideal client? All these questions, which every marketing coach or marketing guru or leadership guru is going to ask you. And the thing that's hilarious is they think you're going to know. Right?
Right.
Think
right.
you're going to
We're
know. Like,
supposed to know.
you're supposed to know this stuff. And the bottom line is, here's another one of my famous slides. These are really hard questions.
Back it up a little bit. Show us the slide again. Back it up. There we go. Really hard questions.
These are really hard questions. And it's like, oh, well, you just know your vision and your mission and your purpose, and then you just get out there. And I'm going to show you how to get out there. But unless you know how to answer those questions, whatever you do, it's not going to work. So what happens is all of us, especially the over 40 folks, we were taught that you're supposed to know the right answer to every question. And so when people ask us questions, well, we're supposed to know the answer. So if you don't know the answer, what you learn to do is you make some shit up. Right. And this is what you just like, you make something up. It's like, oh, well, I guess it's this. You just try to think about it and you try to make some stuff up. And then you take that as if it's correct, because in those of us who are industrial babies, we were taught you're never supposed to make mistakes or get wrong answers. So whatever you put down on the paper, you got to stick with it. Like, that's the right answer. And the bottom line is it's mostly nonsense. The stuff you write down is just stuff you think you should be, or someone told you were, or all a big swirly mess.
You pull it from the air, like, well, projections. Well, we'll just guess.
Yeah, I guess it's, my mom always told me this, so I guess that's my purpose. I guess that's my value. My mom always said, oh, you're a really good singer. Okay, I guess I'm a singer. It's like, well, it's mostly nonsense. And it's not like anyone told you stuff or whatever with bad intent, but it's not like the stuff you are going out into the world with is the real you. And so what's most important is if you take this idea, the universe never lies, and it's like, wow, I'm really trying to build this business, and marketing is a real struggle for me, like it is for 98% of the people who try to start a business or try to get promoted into leadership or try to find their soulmate. It's a real struggle. And it's not because the stuff you're learning how to do to get out there is wrong. It's that the foundation you're starting with is wrong.
So we're going to go there because we're going to talk about some cool tools here in a minute. Yes. But I want to go back to something you said, because I just want to clarify that the universe never lies.
Yes.
And if you're really struggling, look within.
Yes.
Where do things like destiny and timing and outside influence come in? All these outer sort of things. Where does that meet with the look within to actualize ourselves, make our dreams come true?
It's a really good question, Michelle. And there's also some really provocative new information about this as well, which is the first thing that let me see here. I think I have another slide here. Okay. Here's a little slide. This is called The Story of You.
Pull it back a little bit. I can't see the whole thing. There we go.
Okay, so nice. The story of you has 3 phases. The first is who you were born to be. The second is who you learned to be. And then the third is who you choose to be. Okay, so this is a really provocative thing to start to understand, that mostly who you think you are in the world is who you learned to be. And who you learn to be occurs like this. You're born into the world, this little baby human, with all kinds of unique qualities, superpowers, amazing characteristics, but you're born into an environment, which is people, places, things, and circumstances. Okay? So you're born into a world, and then there's other humans around, your parents, maybe some siblings, there might be neighbors, grandparents, all kinds of folks around. And so this little human starts expressing its self, its superpowers, wanting to be its unique self in the world. And usually what happens is the big humans are not usually so keen on what you're expressing most of the time. At first, when you're a little child, like, oh, she's so cute, look at her. But then once you get to be like 2, 3, 4, they call it terrible twos for a reason, because it's when the big humans don't like what the little humans are doing. Right? So every human being is who they are based on how they adapted to the expectations of their environment. And that actually continues through your lifetime. Human beings are incredibly adaptive creatures. We're always adapting to the world around us. And this is really profound. And the key is that the people that you're born into, they don't mean you any harm most of the time. But what they do want is to keep you safe. Their imperative is your safety. So if you start expressing some leadership qualities and you're a little 4-year-old, they're like, hey, you're a little 4-year-old, simmer down over there. You're not the leader around here. You know, we're the leaders, right? So this little 4-year-old with his inborn leadership capability trying to lead is like told to simmer down, shut up, or whatever, right? So what happens is you learn to hide your unique qualities. You learn to hide your most precious gifts, your real strengths and superpowers. The other thing you learn to hide is your vulnerabilities. Where you take the world in, where you're vulnerable to the world, you also learn to hide those, because you're not supposed to be vulnerable and you're not supposed to be too special, right? You're supposed to kind of like right in this little box.
Especially for people over 40.
Exactly. Especially. We were born into a really defined box. Like, you know, who do you're not that special.
Go to school, do well, do this, do
just
that.
Sit in little rows and little desks and shut up and do what you're told. I mean, that was basically school, and it was day after day after day. So you learn to put yourself into the box. So now you're over 40. You get this bright idea that this career you've been slaving into for years is really not fulfilling, and you want to either get a new career or start a business or whatever you want to do, and you're trying to get out there, but who you're being going out there is a little tiny fraction of who you were born to be. And that is the real trouble. That's where the universe doesn't lie. It's like, well, you're just being this little box when the world wants you to be all of you. And so that's when things get really gummed up. And the thing is that, Michelle, you and I have been talking about this, and it's really profound, especially those of us over 40, which I, like to call the industrial babies. We were born into an industrial world where everyone was supposed to just get a job, work your job, don't ask too many questions, and then you'll be taken care of, right? That was like the original idea. But as we grew up, the industrial age crumbled. Jobs don't last. Relationships don't last. All this stuff we were told when we were children is blown up, and it's a whole new world. Now it's like you've got to be on Facebook or Twitter. You've got to express yourself. You've got to share your vulnerability. You've got to share your unique qualities. And it's like, yikes, we were told don't ever do that. So it really takes some rigorous exploration and like I would like to think in the hands or in the company of someone who's been down that path and can guide you, because another big issue for those of us in the industrial age was we were pretty much told to do it yourself. We were the do-it-yourself generation. Like, sit down, shut up, just do your own work. Don't ask for help because that means you're weak. Don't share with your neighbor because that means you're a cheater. Just do your own thing and that'll be fine. But now it's a new era. This is the connected age. And now we need to be connecting and collaborating and co-creating and all these things to be successful. But we were not trained for this. We were actually trained to not do it.
So let me clarify a couple of things.
Yes.
Because I noticed this in my daughter's school. So many people who know me know I'm a midlife mommy. I've got a 12-year-old.
Nice. That's a learning
really
curve for
great.
you.
Oh boy. And I notice, so she comes with things like homework, and she's in a pretty progressive school where they do help each other and share.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes home with homework, and I'm like, well, yes, use a calculator. That's like the real world. I use a calculator, right?
Right.
And it seems like even now, some schools encourage that, some don't. I came to this because a minute ago you were like, don't share with your neighbor that's cheating.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's like, why don't we use all the tools available to us? If I have a question, I ask my husband. Right? It's not like I'm not going to ask my husband. It's like I ask him. That's part of the collaborative.
Yes, but that's the new world. Like, especially those of us guys, like, don't ask directions. Just be lost and find your own way. But you know what? Guys now ask directions. Hey, how do I find this place? Or we ask the great God Google. Google, where is this place? We can ask without, being too vulnerable. But seriously,
I love that connection with cheating, though.
Yeah.
Because I think there's something. My brain went, oh, cheat. Yeah, it used to be called cheating. Now it's called collaborating.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love that.
It used to be called cheating. Yeah, and it's like, and it was the worst crime you could commit. As a kid, like, don't be a cheater. Like, that was the worst thing you could be, was a cheater. And that meant you either tried to help the kid sitting next to you or ask for help. Either one, highly frowned upon. And so, but that's my point, Michelle, is like, okay, so we learned, we adapted. We're smart little humans. Like, oh, I get it. Just sit here by myself and do my own thing. And don't ask anybody anything. Like, that's what we learned. We adapted. That's who we learned to be. But the world is now calling for us to be something very different. And that's where the new game comes in.
All right. So one more piece of clarification, and we're going to move on. So we, those of us, many of us over 40 are on social media, right? So let's not try to pretend that we're not also hip and with it, as we are.
We're with it. Yeah, baby.
We're with it. My daughter would be like, oh, Mom, please. However, sometimes what I hear from clients, and I'm sure you do as well, is, well, I'm on Facebook, but I don't want everybody to see what I'm doing. Yes. Or does that mean I have to post what I had for lunch, right? Yes. That's, and it's all about cute cats. What a waste of time.
Yes.
Right? So how do we bridge the gap between what we think is happening on social media in our over 40 brains and how we can actually use it to express and connect and be collaborative?
I think it's a really good point. I think, and this is a little quirky, right? So on the one hand, we're always adapting to the world around us, but this is actually, it's quirky, but it's also, this is where the real profound opportunity is. And that is that, remember I said it's who you were born to be, which we're going to talk about in a moment, who you've learned to be, which we just talked about quite a bit, but then it's who you choose to be. Okay. And here's the really provocative truth. As a human being, you are going to continue to adapt to your environment till your last day. This is an inherent quality of human beings. So what you can do, what you must do, is choose who you're hanging around. Because if you choose who you're friends with on Facebook, who you hang around in local communities, who you read, who you spend time with, by consciously choosing who you're around, you then choose what you're adapting to. So you can actually craft who you want to become in the world by choosing who you hang around, where you go, what you do. And you can keep choosing new possibilities for yourself by choosing new people. So if you're on Facebook and the people are all sharing kooky cat photos, well, unfriend them. You don't need cat photos, right?
Or unfollow
or whatever. Like, hang around people, connect with people that share purposeful, meaningful things, and people who seem to resonate with what you are wanting to share, who you feel good about sharing with, whether it's on Facebook or LinkedIn or going to your local networking group or meetup or wherever you go. It's all about choosing. But the question then becomes, who do you choose? How do you choose? And that really becomes the interesting thing for all of us as we begin to create who do we want to be in this world, which gets back to your original question of branding. You want to do two things. You want to tune into who you were born to be with great clarity so that you then can begin to craft the environment of who you choose to be that is a reflection of who you were born to be. Sort of like skipping past the stuff we learned or like minimizing its influence on us and going from who we were born to be to who we choose to be. And that becomes really what the game is.
And there's so much there. We could go so deep there because it's like, well, maybe I'm supposed to do this. And well, what if I just do this and then it doesn't work out? Maybe it was destiny, or maybe I'm not supposed, right? And we put all these layers on top of it.
It's true.
But are we ready to talk about this?
Yes, we are. Okay, so
I'm going to let you introduce what this is. Oh, good. More little
so I have a little slide here. Life is a game.
Yeah.
And here is your player card. All right, so this is a big thing. So again, those of us over 40, we are industrial babies. So we were basically taught that life is a job. You know, it's basically life is a job. You're just here to do your work. And we work on everything. We work in our careers. We work on our relationships. We work on our golf game. We work on our children. We
work on our children.
We work on our diet. We freaking work on everything.
I've stopped. Okay, I'm not using that word anymore. I get it.
This is the thing. Life is not a job.
Right. I get it.
You know, this is what a good friend of mine said this to me one time. He goes, you're in a restaurant enjoying a delicious meal. You're in a beautiful experience. And then the waiter comes over and says, still working on that? It's like, yeah, I'm plowing through. I'm going to get her done. It's like, I'm not working on this meal. I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it. I'm not working here. You still working on that? It's like we turn everything into work. It's crazy. So my thing is, life is not work. Life is actually, it's meant to be a game. You play it. You play life. You don't work on life. So if you're going to play a game, and there's so much now evidence about all these games that people are playing, these online games. And this is where I got this idea that, you know, if you play some of these online games, you create a persona, right, to play the game with. Like, oh, you know, you're an elf or whatever, and you have these strengths and you have these vulnerabilities and these superpowers. And then I realized, you know what's funny? We were actually born with a player card. And that's what this system is all about. It actually shows you. I'll just give you a little flash of it here and I'll go back into it more. But like, this is your player card. And when
it's all those white,
and you look at this, it's like you got all the shapes and the colors and the lines and all these little symbols and numbers. That's actually your player card. This shows you your strengths, your vulnerabilities, your capabilities. It shows you all of this in your player card. But the trick is, like all of these games, like if you play World of Warcraft the first time and you get your player card, you're like, oh my God, what am I looking at? It's like all kinds of stuff on the screen. There's like 50 things on the screen. You don't even know what you're looking at. But then you play and then you figure it out, right? So, and you Google, like, what does this thing mean? And then someone has a video that says, oh, this thing means that. If you have this superpower, this is what you can do. Like, it's all on Google now, right? So, and this is the same kind of thing. So when you get your player card, you can begin to learn what all of these things mean and what they're telling you about what you're here to do in the world. So I'll give you a little example. So here's my player card, right? And there's this line right over here, and it has partially red, partially black. And when you see a line, you always see that the symbols on either side of that line are colored in. Okay.
Right.
So when you look at this player card, if a symbol is colored in, that's an area of life where you are here to be an influence on others, where you have something to share. Okay. Mm-hmm. So for example, this square at the bottom is called the root. It's also the center of drive. It's the drive to go out and do something in the world. And if you look at my player card, you can see I have a lot of lines around there. Well, that's because I am here to drive. I am a driver. I am a human of great ambition, right? And that's what that means. Some people have a lot of ambition. Some people don't. It's nothing wrong with that. Some people
I have to look at my daughter's chart.
Some people express life. And that's the thing about your game card is it's like, okay, you're here to express certain qualities and influence people. So I influence people by having a lot of drive. People hire me to coach them because I really get people going. That's one of my superpowers. I'm really good at that. If you hang out with me, it's like, wow, I want to go do something, so because I infect people with my drive. Okay, as an example. Now, when you look at any of these areas of life, there's many lines, and they give you the little nuances about that quality. Okay, and this takes time to learn, but this is like getting into who you were born to be, and this is a system that is based on when you were born, where you were born, and this amazing system. It's very scientific, but also based on incredible esoteric knowledge through the centuries, combined together to create this incredible system that's really perfect for the 21st century of play. So anyway, there's my superpower based on this system is called. It actually has two meanings. One is called the fight for individual freedom. So that's my little nuance. Like, I am really here for individuals to be free. Like and if someone is stuck or trapped or, I've always been for the underdog in any game. It's like, I'm like, power to the people, like ever since I was a kid. The other aspect of this is called the game player of life. How hilarious is that? I am actually here to show people to play the game of life. I was born to do this. So this was so amazing to me when I saw this. It's like, oh yeah. It's like, I forgot that's what I was here to do. And I think this is the experience I have with so many people when I show them this, is that it's like, oh yeah, that is what I'm really here for. That is what I'm born to do. And I started thinking back when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, I was always creating games for people. But then you go to school and it's like, we don't play games here. We're here to do our worksheets. And it just kind of got squashed. And then when I found this system and someone showed it to me and said, oh, Dave, you're here to be the game player of life, I was like, oh, that's what I'm here to do.
So let me ask you a question.
Yes, of course.
I have to keep interrupting
you.
No,
so
because my brain is so full, right?
I love that.
So you realize this is what you're meant to do.
Yes.
For many people, then there's a real disconnect of how do I get there?
Yes.
Like, how you just like quit your job and say, now I'm going to start in the game world, right?
Yeah, and it's a good question.
That bridge is really hard for people. So how did you do it?
And this is true. I mean, that's why I said these are really hard questions. This is not easy, but one thing is, Michelle, is it is a game. Okay. And even though it seems really serious, and it is serious, but I would call it serious play. So it's play. How do you play life when you find out, oh, I'm in the wrong game, right? I mean, that's really what most people wake up to in their 40s is, crap, I'm in the wrong game.
Yeah,
or even worse than the wrong game is I am in an unwinnable game. That's what most people realize. It's like, wow, this game I'm in, I can't win this game. I can't win. This is an unwinnable game.
And I have a feeling when you're talking about winning, it's an internal piece.
Of course.
It's not about competition.
Yes, it's like winning the game of your life is on your own terms by living your purpose, what you're really here to do. And if if you're trapped in a job that doesn't utilize your superpowers or actually wants you to suppress them, then you can't win there. And I
love this word superpowers that you keep saying.
Yeah, because that's what it is. That. It's like you were born with superpowers, but you learn to hide them.
Are there like 10 superpowers that we say, oh, I know I've got that one? Because I think it's helpful when there's a system.
Yeah, there is a system.
And it's like, you can fly, you have telepathy, right? Whatever it's like, oh, I want that one. I want the flying one.
It's true.
Right?
So in this particular system, there are 36 superpowers. So it's about knowing which ones you have. Some people have one, some have several. But you just need to know which ones you have. And then with coaching, you find a way to create your game of life to use your superpowers. And that typically takes steps. But like we were talking about before, the first step really is to know who you were born to be. And then the second step is to figure out what kind of a game can you play right now based on those superpowers. So find a way, like maybe you can sneak them into your job a little bit, or maybe you can get a slightly different job, or maybe you can get some kind of a hobby or something else where you can start using your superpowers. So there's always a way. Once you know who you're really born to be, you start finding a way to bring it into the world.
I love that, because what I often say with clients is that you're already living your purpose. It's becoming aware of where you're doing it so that you can do more of it.
Yes, exactly. That's great. That's perfect.
And so I love the fact that you're not saying quit your job, throw away the baby with the bathwater. It is start utilizing your superpowers and hobbies at your work where you're already living, because that's a real easy bridge.
Yes, exactly. And then you start to find out the big question: does my environment appreciate my superpowers? Yeah. Is this a place I can be truly myself? And that takes time to figure out. It's not overnight. And sometimes you got to ask hard questions like, hey, I really want to do this here with the company. Can you help me find a way to do this here? And again, this is totally out of the comfort zone for those of us over 40, because we were taught just shut up and do what you're told and don't ask too many questions. You're not that special, and don't, try to create something unique for you. Just be like everyone else. So this is where the comfort zone comes in, and those of us over 40, we really have to start like elbowing our way out of that comfort zone and start asking bigger questions, feeling that we are worthy of having opportunities to be ourselves. And so you start making changes. You start asking for what you really need, that kind of stuff.
So another aha moment, another connection of the dots.
Yes.
We hear so many people over 40 saying that the millennials and the younger people are spoiled. They think they're special.
Yes.
They think that they're better than the rest of us. Yes. They just want it all to be handed to them.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Actually, and there's always been a disconnect for me, especially bringing up a parent with a child that, of course, she's special.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
I think she's special.
Right.
And so I guess my big aha right now and the connection is that we were all born to be special.
Yes.
And because we didn't recognize it in ourselves, we think it's just more natural for us to squash it or see it as bad in the younger generation.
Exactly. They need to teach us. I mean, that's really the way. Now, there is a little clunk with the sort of the thinking they should get everything for nothing. Like that's a little bit of a clunk. But, in terms of the spectrum of how life is really meant to be and how it's really not meant to be, they're like at the 90% right. They're like, and we got the 10%, but we need to come over with them. you know,
I don't think they want it all for nothing.
I think it's true. I agree with you.
I think they just want it.
They just want it.
And they're not willing to give up their lives for
Exactly.
it.
They're not willing to work.
Right.
They're not gonna work. And,
right. They want it to be fun and playful.
Yeah, they're here to play because that's actually what humans are here to do. We are here to play. And here's the bottom line, Michelle. They're gonna win. Right?
Well, of course,
they have time on their side. They're gonna win. So we need to get on board with them. That's really the truth. And so that's really what I'm here to do, uniquely here to do, is to show people how to play. I was born to show people how to play. That's my thing. And so I really love when I have someone over 40 who's like, Dave, I just really can't figure this stuff out. It's like, come with me. I will show you.
And you can help people discover which superpower they are.
Exactly. For sure.
Right.
You know, that's where I start. I start right here. Everyone gets one of these when they come in any of my programs, and we start here. And that's really what this vision I have for this visibility studio is, to start with your superpowers and learn who you were born to be. So that way, when you do go out there in the world with whatever your purpose is driving you to do, you can go out there with clarity, rather than this fuzzy, like, oh, I think I'm kind of this way, or I think I should do this, or I was always told I'm this. So instead, you find out who you were really born to be, and then you kind of unravel what you've learned that may or may not be serving you. And then ultimately, you start to choose, who am I really here to be in this world, and how am I going to do that? I'm going to do that by creating an environment that actually nourishes and embraces me being myself, rather than trying to squash me into be like everybody else.
So we'll come back to it again later, but this is a great time to tell people how they can find you on Grace Point. I don't think it's up quite yet, but there's going to be a Dave Buck page on Grace Point. I know that that's coming, and so people can go to Grace Point.
I'm so excited about Grace Point.
GracePointMatrix.com/Dave Buck and get their chart and connect with you. But where else can they connect with you? What's your site?
My site is coachville.com. And Coachville has always been a company that's oriented on teaching people how to become a coach for others, which is actually really synergistic for people over 40, because a lot of people of this age really want to start coaching others. So that is a good point. But we are starting to create programs for what we call players. It's like programs for players. And one of the programs we're creating is this visibility challenge, where you get your player card, learn how to play, learn how to design your environment, and then learn how to bust out of your comfort zone so that you can tune up your environment to begin really embracing who you are.
So does this chart, here's mine.
Yes.
And I know a little bit, so I do know a little bit, but I'm asking as though I don't.
Yes.
It has 36 superpowers. It has different types. What does it tell me about how I'm supposed to be visible in the world? Yeah.
Okay. This is good. So this is something that I've been playing with this system off and on for over 10 years. And I've really learned so much about it. And it's interesting because before I started getting involved with Coachville, I actually was a personal branding coach. So I've been this has been my thing for a long time. Okay, so this is what I figured out. To create your personal brand out in the world, to be visible, there's two components. Most people think it's just one thing, like, oh, you just have to know what your one thing is, but it's actually not one thing. It's actually two things. There's a yin and yang of your brand. And what that means is your brand is a composite of who you're here to express and how you influence people, but also where you are here to be vulnerable. And your brand is a composite of your influence and your vulnerability. Okay, so I'll give you an example from my player card. So as far as influence goes, we've talked about that. That's this area here. I'm here to create drive. I motivate people, especially on how to fight for their own freedom and how to play their life as a game. That's my unique quality of what I'm here to share with the world. Okay.
Okay.
Now, vulnerability is all the white space. So you can see I'm a very vulnerable dude. Okay. But so what you do is you find an area of vulnerability that is your quest for learning. Okay. So your vulnerable is where you want to learn from the world, where you take the world into you. And in my superpower, the thing that's always been so compelling to me in this area, that's what's called the throat area, which I've always called finding your voice. What are you here to express? And how do you express your voice? I don't have a defined voice. My voice is always shifting and changing. And I notice this, like if I hang around someone for more than 2 days, I start talking like them. So
you pick up the accent
when you travel? When I travel, like this. I am like instantaneous. I sound like people. I start using their expressions. It's kind of crazy. And it used to make me crazy. Like, why do I do that? Well, it's because that's how I'm designed.
So hold up your player card. And
that's my superpower. My throat is wide open. I just suck people in.
So it's nice to have the visual.
And so this is really good to know. So first of all, now I don't have to freak out when I sound like people, because that's what I do. And that's comforting in a lot of ways. The other thing is, it's my question. My question for the world is, what is your voice? What are you here to express? And so I ask that question of the world. And so my brand is based on the yang of, hey, play your life as a game and I'll show you how. And the yin of, what's your voice? What are you here to express? What's special about you? What do you want? What are you really here to say? Because I don't have that answer. I only have that as a lifelong question. So my brand is a combination of who I was born to express and my lifelong questions that I keep asking and asking and asking and learning and taking it in and experimenting and trying. And because that's your brand is the yin and yang. And so what I help people do is look at their player card, figure out which of their superpowers they really are here to emphasize. Maybe it's right now because it can evolve over time. And then which of life's questions are you really here to ask? And then by knowing those two things, you can start to craft a brand that you can go out into the world as a business, as a leader, or looking for a mate, whatever game you're wanting to play.
Yeah, nice. So we've got the centers, we've got the superpowers.
Yes. And this, there's so much information in this player card. The centers will tell you a lot. They tell you where you're vulnerable. And you can learn a lot there, because where you're open, you also are not, well, you're vulnerable, which means you can be learning from life. It also means you can be manipulated by life. And so you often learn where you're trying to be something that you're not supposed to be. Right? Or that you were not born to be, because, especially those of us over 40, we were always told, well, just try to be like the other kids, just try to fit in.
Right.
So you're like, well, okay, I guess all the other kids are doing this. I'll try to do it, even though it might have nothing to do with who you were born to be. So you learn where you've sort of adopted and adapted in a way that's actually not true to your core. And that can be very illuminating, because that's why, going back to my initial premise of why so many people struggle. The universe never lies. If you're struggling, it's because you've probably adapted and learned to try to be something that's actually not true for you. It's not the real you. And that's why you're struggling.
So let me clarify.
Yes.
Let's say we have a dream to become a singer.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You know you were born to sing. You're great at singing. You have the drive to sing, but you're struggling. Reconcile that for me, because not everybody's going to be a top 40 singer or an opera singer.
It is true. But one thing I do know is that if you look at your player card and look at your superpowers, you could start to figure out, what are you supposed to be singing about? Like, that might be the thing. Like, maybe your songs are not true to you, right? And that's why they're not resonating with people. You might have, we all know it's not the talent. I mean, talent helps, but there's a lot of people who are super successful singers that have terrible voices, right?
And vice versa.
And vice versa.
Great
people,
singers who never made
great
it.
voices that don't make it, right? And it's most likely because they're not singing their true voice, like what they're really here to sing. I think that's one main thing. The other thing is, like I said, those of us who grew up in the industrial age, we really learned to hide ourselves so much that we don't even know we're doing it. We don't know we're hiding our superpowers. We just think we're just being how we're supposed to be. But deep inside of you, there's some stuff that's hidden. And so my feeling is that no matter what you're trying to do, whether it's be a singer or a business leader or whatever you're trying to do, if you get to the core of who you were born to be and get clear about that and start finding ways to express it, whatever venue you're choosing, you will have much more success one way or another. You'll meet success because you're being an influence in the areas of life you were born to be an influence. And you also have to be willing to be vulnerable in the areas of life where you were born to be vulnerable. And when you find that, you really get more success.
You're talking about the visibility game, visibility game that you're doing. It strikes me that it's really about starting to be more visible with yourself, about the parts of ourselves that we've squished down through life or training or I mean, life happens, right?
Exactly.
It's hard sometimes to be wonder-like and childlike when
like this
life just
this happens all the time, right? You look at two siblings that grew up in the same family and you go, well, why is one so much this way and one is so the other way? Well, if you really dig into it, you could find out like, oh, this one was born when the family was happy. Then dad lost his job. And then this one was born. And this one grew up in a family that's always on edge, always stressed. Mom and dad are always agitated because dad doesn't have a job. It's like, well, they actually grew up in two very different environments, even though it was the same house.
Right.
And so you start to find out like, oh, this happened when I started expressing myself. Then dad lost his job. Mom was stressed. So when I would just go around singing, mom would say, can you be quiet? Dad's trying to read the paper and find a job or whatever. It's like, then you find out like, oh, in that environment, at that moment, I learned don't express this talent. And that's how it got squashed.
And then it becomes shame.
Right, exactly. And then and that's how and then this is a really good point you bring up, Michelle. I think there's one thing that happens, which is we all learn to hide parts of ourselves. But an even deeper thing that happens to a lot of people is you actually learn to fear your superpowers. It's like, and when you learn to fear your superpowers, then that's going to take some real courage to explore and bring them, out into the world. And that's why, the whole thing is when I talk about this visibility studio is having a coach, having a guide. Don't try to walk this journey alone. Even though we were all taught it's a do-it-yourself life, it's not a do-it-yourself life. Don't play this game alone. It's not necessary. There's so many great coaches in the world that can help you do this and can support your journey. So find one, and I think that's a big point here because fear, shame, they play a big role in learning how to express who you are really born to be. They really do.
Yeah. And it shows up as, who am I to do this? Or I'm not good enough, or I don't have enough training, or I don't have enough money. I'm too fat. I'm too thin.
Everything.
Right. I'm too old. I'm too young.
All that stuff, all of it. Then you get in some marketing program and they're like, well, just own your value and just go out there and follow my 3-step plan for networking. It's like, it's not going to work.
Yeah, right.
It's not going to work. Or this other guy's like, oh, just charge high fees and then you get big clients.
Right.
Well, if you don't think you're worth high fees, you're not going to get clients for high fees. It's just not going to work. You got to own your value first. Then I'm all for charging high fees if people want to pay it, but you got to own your value first. And that piece, that's the really hard part that everyone just thinks you should just be able to do. Oh, just own your value. Right. That's like, I was at this conference one time, and this was basically the gist of the conference. All you have to do to be successful is be yourself, build relationships, and add value. That's all you have to do. Piece of cake. You do those 3 things, boom, you're golden. I'm like, okay, wait, be yourself. Right. So that's just the hardest thing in the world to do. So it's like, oh yeah, just go be yourself. Build relationships. Like, that's so easy. Just go build some relationships. Like, we're all terrified of each other. And now we're going to go, oh, just go build a relationship. Piece of cake. It's easy. Oh, then just add value. Just people, as if people are just dying for us to add value to them. They're like, nope, don't need any help. No thanks. I'm good. Oh, doing fine. It's like these are the 3 hardest things in the world to do. And this is like the foundation of every business program. So we've got to get to the core. And that's what I'm all about.
I love this. So we're wrapping up now.
Yes, we are.
3 minutes. Pull it all together. We've got superpowers. We have squashed those through whatever.
Yes. We were hiding, reason. Fearing, and then not even knowing. We just don't even know that we're doing that.
And to live our best life, whether you want to call it authentic, visible, whatever, to live the best us that we can be, we have to become visible to ourselves, and then
that's right, and then to the world. Exactly. And so, it really starts with, there's the foundational pieces. You start with finding out who you were born to be. And, that does require some courage to go, wait, that's me. And then a lot of times it's a clunk, like, oh, crap, how did I forget that? Or how did I not know? Or whatever. But just, trust the system that this is what you were born for. You'll notice it when you get your superpower, your player card, you'll be like, oh, yeah, that is kind of me. Okay. And then you start playing it. It's a game. Remember, you got to play the game of your life. You can't control life, but you can influence it if you learn how to play. Then you start crafting an environment, finding and building an environment that actually embraces who you were born to be. And then you have to face all the fears and step out of your comfort zone that it's going to be required of you to start making those big steps in the world. And, those 4 things, they're all very learnable, very coachable. You can practice them. You can get better and better. And then that becomes really the game of your life, to keep getting better and better at being the real you in the world.
And we want to do this because
that's what we're here.
It's hard.
It is.
Right?
That's what we're here to do. That's the thing, Michelle, like, that's like the last question is probably the first question too. It's like, you got to want it. Yeah. You got to want it. You don't do this. Don't call me if you don't want it. Right? Seriously, there's got to be something in your heart that is yearning to come out. And if you're feeling it, then it's like, I really want to do this. Or I started my business. I really am so excited about it, but it's a struggle. Or I really want this promotion, or I really want to find a new partner, or what. There's got to be something that you really want, that you're willing to play for. You have to be
willing to be in the pain of it, to have the courage to come out.
Yeah, to recognize I really want it and it's not happening by itself. So I've got to do something different here.
I love this conversation.
It was awesome, Michelle. You're great. You're awesome. It was
great. So CoachPhil.com.
Yes, CoachPhil.com.
You can find out more about you. And also GracePointMatrix.com/Dave Buck.
Coming soon to a Grace Point near you.
It'll be up today.
Awesome.
And
can't wait. I'm so excited about Grace Point, Michelle. I really am. I'm so excited about it. I can't wait to be a part of it.
Yeah. I can't wait to have you. All right.
Awesome. Thanks.
This was great. Thank you so much.
Peace, everyone. Play your life.